Dr. Dayton. How are you?
Hello.
Welcome to the GatherVerse Summit 2024. So exciting, right?
Yes. The last panel was very, very interesting.
Oh, I thought so too. When we got into the whole quantum aspect of things, I was like, yes, like we need to go here.
Yes,
Because
and I want to let you know before we start that I am remote in Cherokee Nation right now. I am in a classroom, and I have no way of controlling whether or not there'll be an announcement about lunch or whether or not there may be a "Go Cougars, let's win this basketball game tonight." But this is the work that I do on the ground, and you will see how it colors all of my answers to your questions today, is really being out in the field and seeing how people use emerging tech. So I wanted to let everybody know before we started that there may be minor interruptions, but it's all for the greater good so that we can collect real data on real people living real problems and trying to find real solutions. So
I love that. Okay, well, I mean, welcome. I've been excited about this conversation. I touched base with you in advance, I know, right? Just a little bit. And today we're here to discuss the power of an immersive opportunity, right?
yeah.
And what does that look like in the world? And so our first question was innovative integration. So, in your experience, what are the most effective strategies for integrating immersive technologies into traditional sectors to enhance user engagement and outcomes?
So I say that I work in high need, low resourced environments.
Dr.
Listen,
Dayton, I need Ashton Deardup to go out to the ag building at this time.
did you hear that? Ashton, please go out to the ag building. so, um, what I do is I go out into communities and I find out what it is that they're struggling with in terms of real world problems. And it may not have anything to do with immersive integration. And so a lot of my time, because my background is as an anthropologist, I sit and listen because it's really about creating a better reality for them, how they see their world, giving them agency to make the decisions they have to make in low resourced, high need environments like the school that I'm in right now, where they have very old computers, but they'd like to integrate AI, where they are very open to virtual reality and augmented reality, but maybe they don't have the money to buy all of the equipment. And how do they decide? How do they take agency to create the reality for themselves? Because when you integrate into a sector like education or even into industry, the ownership that the end user has in their experience that comes through, and if you listen to the previous discussion, through trust, through their ability to play, through their ability to find their own utility, that creates the environment for sustainable, not sustainable green. I'm not saying sustainable green's not good, but I mean like the sustainable, I'm not just going to take the tech and stick it in a drawer after everybody goes. And so I find that the most important thing is to build meaningful relationships, sit down and listen, and not think that you have all of the answers, but really let people come to their own conclusions. This takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, right? So is that kind of it's a backwards answer, but I'm saying if you're dealing with a different type of immersive dynamic medium, you need to have a dynamic response to that if you're trying to get long-term adoption or mass deployment, right?
Yes, and the mass deployment unified is the most important thing I believe that you touched on. And so that came up in conversation yesterday. And so yeah, how do we unify, right? And strengthen and empower and come out of this with essentially potentially like new designs that meet the needs of the here and the now, because we're in like heavy tech world right this minute. It's hot, right? Hot topic.
Yes, things are changing super fast, and people are feeling a little bit scared and a little bit excited. And sometimes they feel really alone. Like, am I the only one trying to fix this problem in this entire industry? So, one of the things that we do is we bring together roundtable events where stakeholders get to talk with other stakeholders and say, there's big companies out there and big markets, and we're trying to enact change. We don't work together. then we really can't make things happen. I need to know that my contribution is meaningful. How do I draw upon, and the other thing we do is we offer support through our Science and Ethics Council, through the Virtual World Society, to say, what did people learn the last couple of times there was a change because of a new medium, right? What did we learn from the printing press? What did we learn from Web 1, from Web 2? What did we learn from these things that we can expect to see in our engagement with new mediums, so that we can kind of anticipate some of the problems? And then when you get people together who all want to change something that's important to them, how do you support them? How does the aggregate become larger than the sum of its parts, so that it can push forward and say, we have a solution that we think is right for us. And when that policy window opens up where everything kind of converges, and the headsets are the right price and the systems are ready to change, you can kind of lob that solution in there and say, this is where we want to go as a family, as an individual, as a community, as a sector. But you have to, they say luck favors the prepared. You have to have those discussions ahead of time. And I would argue you have to have those discussions how they happen on the ground. Enough theory, enough talking about what could happen. Like, go get your fingers and your hands dirty in a school in a rural community and see what their considerations are. Because if you don't do that, you're really kind of patronizing to the mass adoption, to the people in middle America or middle Europe that say, I'm not going to adopt this until it actually meets my needs, so that's how I feel about aggregating social good in order to enact change. That's really where we need to be headed.
Yes, agreed. Like, let's use all of this for all of its goodness, like squeezing the lemon, right? And creating everything that we need and that we can have and that we should have globally, right?
Yes.
And you talked about challenges and solutions. I believe we did that, right, already, which was kind of spilling into our next question. But what do you think are the most significant challenges, if you haven't mentioned them already, right, in the development and widespread adoption? You basically just discussed that, but is there anything you feel like we may have missed?
I think that there's a story that was told to me out here in rural Oklahoma, where the first person that this older gentleman knew that had a phone was his aunt, and she was the only one that had the phone. And so she didn't know if her phone worked because nobody else had a phone, and nobody else called her. So periodically she'd lift up the phone and listen to see if it still worked. And then one day there was a critical mass of people who had phones. And then once that mass adoption happened, because there was a need in the community to communicate, to connect, then her phone was actually useful. And when we talk about, I think, challenges facing the development and the adoption of any kind of emerging technology, we don't really ask what is needed on the ground for everybody to get a phone, be it a cell phone or a landline or a headset, and once we go and look and see what people are struggling with, I think I go to a lot of hackathons and people go, here's this cool thing. People could use it for this. People could use it for that. People could use it for this. I said, why don't we just ask people what they need and build to their need? And so I think the most significant challenge is people are very motivated by how can I make the most money, and not necessarily like how can I make the world a better place or ease some of the challenges for people. Ask them what they need and then build to that, because they don't get the return on investment. And I would just argue, if you really meet people's needs, you will always get a return on investment, because everybody will eventually need a landline. So
yes, and people will always participate in that which they help to create, right?
Yes.
So I say this same message going into corporate America as an operations specialist, right? Like, ask all of your people when it comes to change management, any change that you want to implement, you have to talk to everyone and let everyone play devil's advocate. And also share the wins, right? And then, to your point, build and design around that. But don't take a leadership position. And because you have even if you're a PhD, I will urge this, right? Don't pass down decisions assuming that you know everything, because it's not possible, right? You have people in place and a team for a reason. And when you get everybody's advice and everybody's opinion at a core root, it really matters to people. Like, you care.
When we do our roundtable events and we bring in our experts, I say your job is just to listen. And you may think you have the answer, and maybe you do. But as an anthropologist, when I go out, I listen for a very long time because you don't know the critical considerations and your solutions may have unintended consequences. So the responsible, dare I say, ethical thing to do is to listen. Listen. And so I think that once we listen, I think some of the solutions will show themselves. But we don't spend a lot of time listening. We think we have all the answers. I'm okay with not knowing, and I'm okay with being wrong. And if more people in the industry were willing to do those things, I think we could make a lot more progress by passing the mic to people who have more expertise than even we have, because they have the lived experience, right?
Yeah, because they're living it, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in it, like you said, field, right? I have so much appreciation for field operations. Again, like, I've done it and I've lived it, and I know how to get mass groups, as do you, right? And you're in
Yeah.
education, which is even more precious because of the youth and the young lives that you're touching. So thank you
I
for,
do
like,
more than just education, but I love it here because actually the young people have all the answers. That's what I found. Every solution, every insight I have usually comes from Gen Z or Gen Alpha. And so I love being here.
yes, this is like a huge, like, my point, right? But where can people find you? Like, people are going to have questions after this, and then I'm going to close it with our
Yes.
last question, which is a big one. But yeah, where can people find you?
Please go to the virtualworldsociety.org and become an individual member. It's free. And on that website, you'll be able to find me and a bunch of other people that want to make the world a better place using emerging technology. You'll be able to click on my LinkedIn. You'll be able to click on Tom Furness, our founder's LinkedIn. All of us are willing to help. So please go to virtualworldsociety.org.
Awesome. And I'm assuming you'll accept anybody who's coming through who may want to even help in some
Yes.
capacity or some way, right? And
Yes. And if you click on my LinkedIn, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can connect you to other groups of people that are also trying to do good. And you can come and have fun with us. We are fun, happy people trying to do good. So,
yes, I love that. Okay. And then the last question coming at you, like I said, it's a bigger one, is future visions. So looking ahead, how do you envision the evolution of immersive opportunities, right, over the next decade and beyond, potentially?
so again, I'm going to go to the youth. So I think all emerging tech is going to be pushed forward by the young people. I say that the young people will build their landing gear while they're flying the plane. And the rapid change that we're seeing is going to require that type of ingenuity and innovation. And so they will lead us into the future. They have good hearts. They are brilliant people, young people who really want to live in a world that reflects the goodness that they have. And so we just need to get out of their way. They'll listen to us if we're kind and respectful. And so I think that the real evolution of all of these emerging tech opportunities are really going to be led by this group of fearless, innovative, brilliant, kind young folk. And I can't wait for it.
Yes, and I agree with all of that. And the reason why I do is because I'm always trying to educate people when I'm in communication with them, right, about conscious leadership, because that's what I do, bring people into conscious awareness, especially leaders, right? So vitally important right now. But it's that whole, I know that when you look around the world, I know you got to go, but when you look around the world, right, there's so many more superheroes. There's so many
Oh,
more people
yeah.
helping people than there is not. And the doom and the gloom that we see on a regular basis, and our basic journalism of it, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead, has got to go away. And
Yes.
this next push of generation is going to shine. Like, they're going to shine bright. Like, no
They
question.
they understand how to create media based off of things other than clickbait. And so they're going to lead us in us following the good. And I can't wait. So thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about this with you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.